Do you ever lie awake at night staring at the ceiling and wondering why it feels like no matter what you do, women just don't see you? You could be the kindest man in the room, the one with the purest intentions, but in her eyes, you don't even exist. And the painful truth is this: modern dating doesn't reward kindness, loyalty, or even effort. It rewards attraction. And if you're not the man women are drawn to instantly, then every move you make feels like swimming against a rip current, pulling you further into the dark. What's worse is that no one tells you this. They feed you lies. They say, just be yourself. They say, the right woman will see your worth. But I need you to hear this. Those words were never designed to protect you. They were designed to keep you stuck. You see, female psychology is far more primal than most men realize. It's not cruel, but it is brutally honest. A woman's first filter isn't your heart, your intentions, or your dreams. It's whether she feels desire when she looks at you. That desire isn't always about perfect looks, but if you are unattractive in her eyes, she'll categorize you instantly into the invisible box, the one marked, just there. And once you've been placed in that box, it is almost impossible to climb out. That's why so many men are confused today. You give your time, your energy, your loyalty, and you get nothing but silence in return. It feels unfair, but it's reality. Now, here's the bitter truth you were never supposed to know. In modern dating, attraction isn't just important, it's the currency. And if you don't have it, you're bankrupt before the conversation even begins. That's why so many men feel invisible. You walk into a room and women don't glance at you. You open dating apps and your inbox stays empty while hers floods in minutes. It's not because you're worthless. It's because the system was never built in your favor. The men at the top drain all the attention, while the rest are told to be patient, polite, and understanding. And yet, deep down, you know patience doesn't change her biology. You know effort doesn't create desire. And that realization cuts deep. What makes this even harsher is that women rarely admit it out loud. They'll tell you, looks don't matter, personality does, but watch what they do, not what they say. Scroll through her likes, her follows, the men she gives her time to, and you'll see a pattern so clear it stings. Women chase men they find attractive, men who trigger that gut-level instinct, men who make her pulse quicken before he even opens his mouth. That's why so many men feel betrayed. You believed the words, but the actions always revealed another truth. Deep down, you already know this, because you felt the sting of rejection when you did everything right, only to be overlooked for someone who barely tried. But here's where the psychology cuts deeper. Women don't just filter men by attraction. They build entire identities around avoiding the ones they don't desire. If she doesn't see you that way, she won't give you the chance to prove yourself. She won't notice the small ways you care, the sacrifices you're willing to make, the loyalty you carry in your heart. To her, it's background noise, your background noise. And once you realize that, it can crush your confidence like a hammer to glass. Because no matter how much you offer, if she doesn't want you, none of it matters. And yet, the system encourages you to keep giving. They tell you, just wait, just work harder, just prove yourself. But the truth is, you cannot negotiate attraction. You cannot logic your way into her heart. That spark isn't built from favors, compliments, or long conversations. It's built from something she feels instantly. And if she doesn't feel it, then every act of kindness only cements you further as the man she'll never touch. This is the brutal paradox of modern dating. The more invisible you are to women, the harder you try, and the harder you try, the more invisible you become. It's a cycle, and it breaks men silently, one by one. So what happens next? Men bury their truth. They pretend not to care. They laugh off rejection. They say they're focused on themselves, when inside, they're drowning in loneliness and resentment. Because no one ever prepared you for the harshest truth of all, that being unattractive in today's dating world doesn't just limit your options, it rewrites your entire experience of love itself. You've probably noticed it already. The dating marketplace doesn't operate on fairness, it operates on hierarchy. And when you're not the man women naturally gravitate toward, you feel the weight of that hierarchy pressing down on your chest. Look at dating apps, the perfect mirror of female psychology. A small percentage of men get the majority of swipes, while the rest compete for scraps. You could be intelligent, hardworking, even emotionally stable. Yet if your photos don't ignite that spark, you're invisible before you type a single word. And when you're invisible online, you start believing you're invisible in life. That's when despair sets in, because it feels like the entire system has conspired to remind you daily, you're not what women want. But here's the cruel twist. Women rarely acknowledge this openly because they don't experience dating the way men do. A woman can step into the market and be flooded with attention, offers, validation. Even the average woman feels desired, but the average man, he feels forgotten. That's why resentment builds. Because you're told men and women have the same chances, the same struggles, but you live with a truth no one dares speak. A woman's dating life is abundance, while yours is drought. And in that drought, loneliness grows like weeds in your soul. This is where psychology gets dark. When a woman doesn't find you attractive, she doesn't just reject you, she erases you. Think about it. When you walk past her, she doesn't register your existence. When you message her, she doesn't even reply. When you try to connect, she feels nothing. You're not even an option in her mind. That level of invisibility eats at a man's core because men are wired to seek purpose, recognition, and respect. And when the women you desire can't even look at you, you start questioning your entire value as a man. That's the silent suffering so many carry. They're not angry because they feel entitled. They're angry because they feel unseen. And no one tells you how dangerous that feeling is. Because when you go long enough without intimacy, without validation, without touch, it begins to distort your mind. You start to wonder if love was ever meant for you, if you're destined to be an observer, never a participant. And the more you think about it, the more it haunts you. Maybe attraction is the gatekeeper, and if you don't have the key, you'll always be left outside. Here's the truth that burns the deepest. In a woman's world, being unattractive doesn't just mean fewer chances. It often means no chances at all. She can't force desire. She can't will herself to be drawn to you. And if you think about it, neither can you. You don't get to choose who you're attracted to. It's instant, primal, rooted in biology. That's why it hurts when women say, just be confident, as if confidence can magically override her instincts. Because what they don't say is this: confidence only works when there's already attraction. If there's no spark, confidence turns into arrogance in her eyes. Every move you make becomes another reason to dismiss you. And the irony is, you're not invisible because you lack value. You're invisible because she can't feel value where biology hasn't lit the flame. A man can be brilliant, loyal, hardworking, even wealthy, and still get overlooked if he doesn't strike that initial chord of attraction. That's why so many men are frustrated today, because effort feels wasted. You invest time, money, energy, but if the raw spark isn't there, it collapses instantly. And women rarely see the devastation this causes. They don't see the late nights where you wonder why you're never chosen. They don't see the self-doubt that creeps in after years of rejection. They don't see the man slowly hardening his heart, not out of bitterness, but out of survival. But listen carefully. The harsh reality isn't meant to break you. It's meant to wake you. Because the moment you stop believing the lies, you stop wasting your energy where it's not respected. You start to see patterns for what they are, not what you wish they'd be. And that clarity, though painful, is power. Yes, modern dating is brutal. Yes, female psychology is unforgiving. But men who confront this truth stop begging for scraps of attention. They stop building their worth around whether or not a woman desires them, and that's when a shift happens. Not with her, but with you. You must understand, rejection doesn't define you, but your reaction to rejection does. Will you allow invisibility to turn into bitterness? Or will you recognize it as the system's design and rise above it? Because men who stay blind to this truth remain trapped. But men who see it clearly? They start to rewrite the rules in their favor. Now let's rip away another layer of denial. When you're unattractive in her eyes, you're not just ignored, you're often used. This is where modern dating becomes the cruelest game. She may not want you romantically, but she'll happily take your attention, your validation, your resources. She'll lean on your listening ear when she's hurting, accept your compliments when she's insecure, even let you buy her dinner knowing she'll never feel desire for you. In her world, this isn't cruelty, it's convenience. But in your world, it's death by 1,000 cuts, because every time she lets you orbit around her, you build a fantasy in your mind. A fantasy that one day she'll notice you. One day she'll see what's been in front of her all along, and yet that day never comes. Why? Because in her psychology, you were never in the running. Women don't grow attraction out of guilt or gratitude. They don't suddenly wake up and decide to love the man who's been waiting on the sidelines. The truth is, the longer you stay in her friend zone, the deeper the cement hardens around your place there. And that's why so many men feel trapped. Because you know you're giving, but she doesn't even see it as giving. She sees it as the bare minimum she's entitled to. You're investing in a dream she never agreed to sell you. And here's the reality most men don't want to face. If she doesn't want you now, she won't want you later. Time doesn't shift desire. Deeds don't create attraction. You can sacrifice years of your life hoping for her approval, and she'll still run into the arms of a man who did none of what you did. That's not because women are cruel, it's because attraction isn't a choice. And once you internalize that, you stop wasting your life as a background character in her story. This is where the pain sharpens into clarity, because once you realize how often you've been used for your attention, your energy, your loyalty, you begin to see just how valuable those things truly are. And when you see their value, you stop giving them away for free. The men who never learn this remain broken, resentful, and empty. But the man who learns it, he becomes untouchable. Because he finally understands, if she doesn't want you, nothing you do will change that. And once you accept that truth, you become free. There's a reason why rejection hits men differently than it hits women. For a man, rejection isn't just a no. It's a reminder of his place in the hierarchy. It's proof that no matter how much he builds, how much he offers, he still doesn't pass her first test, attraction. And the harsh truth is this: when you're unattractive in her eyes, she doesn't just reject the relationship, she rejects your very identity as a man. Because so much of masculinity is tied to being chosen, being desired, being wanted. When that doesn't happen, it's not just your ego that takes the hit, it's your soul. You begin to ask questions you never say out loud. Am I even enough? Do I even matter? Will anyone ever want me? And this is the silent prison so many men live in. You can work on your career, your body, your lifestyle. You can build yourself into something extraordinary. Yet if women don't respond, the emptiness lingers. That's why you see men collapse under the weight of loneliness, because society tells you to man up, to stop complaining, to grind harder. But grinding harder doesn't fix the fundamental problem. If she doesn't feel desire, nothing else matters. And when you live in that reality long enough, you start building walls around your heart, not because you want to be cold, but because you can't keep bleeding from the same wound. Here's where psychology plays its cruel trick. Women rarely understand the damage this invisibility causes. They underestimate the weight of loneliness on a man's mind. They assume you'll be fine, that you'll distract yourself with work, with hobbies, with friends. But deep down, every man craves that recognition from a woman he desires. That spark that says, I see you, I want you, you matter. And when you never get it, you carry the ache into every corner of your life. It eats at your confidence. It whispers in your ear when you're alone. It makes every rejection feel like proof you're destined to be unloved. But let me make this clear. Your worth as a man isn't defined by a woman's attraction. Her biology may blind her to your value, but that doesn't erase it. The harsh reality of modern dating is that it won't validate you. And if you keep searching for validation in women's eyes, you'll keep drowning. The freedom comes when you stop begging for it, when you stop tying your identity to whether or not she chooses you. Think about the stories you've been fed since you were a boy. Fairy tales, movies, advice from family, they all told you the same thing. Be good, be kind, be respectful, and love will find you. But reality didn't match the script, did it? You played the role of the good man, and instead of love, you got overlooked. You watched as the same women who preached about kindness chased after men who gave them none. You heard women say they wanted stability, but you saw them give their hearts to chaos. That contradiction has broken countless men because it leaves you questioning your entire identity. If doing the right things doesn't bring you love, then what's left? This is where most men spiral. They either grow bitter, blaming women for everything, or they grow numb, convincing themselves they don't need intimacy. But both paths are dead ends. Bitterness poisons you from the inside. Numbness strips you of your humanity. The truth is, neither extreme gives you peace. What gives you peace is clarity. And clarity starts with this realization. Women don't fall in love with effort. They fall in love with attraction. It doesn't matter how noble you are, how selfless, or how much potential you carry. If that spark isn't there, you're not even a candidate. And as brutal as that is, it's also liberating. Because once you stop expecting effort to translate into love, you stop wasting years chasing illusions. You stop thinking, if I just prove myself, she'll choose me. No, she won't. She already chose the man she desires, and it wasn't you. Accepting that hurts, but it also sets you free. Because now you can direct your energy into places where it actually matters. Into building yourself, not for her validation, but for your own sovereignty. Into surrounding yourself with people who value you, not tolerate you. Into reclaiming the parts of yourself that you lost while waiting for someone else to notice. Here's the truth no one told you. The men who get crushed by dating are the ones who build their lives around women who were never theirs to begin with. The men who rise above it are the ones who face rejection head-on, rip out the fantasies by the root, and build a life so powerful that attraction is no longer the foundation of their worth. That's the shift you've been waiting for. Not her attention, but your awakening. The harshest truth about modern dating is this. It isn't designed for most men to win. It's designed for women to filter and for a small percentage of men to dominate. Think about it. Technology has magnified female psychology. A woman today has more options in her pocket than kings once had in their courts. With one swipe, she can access men taller, richer, fitter, more attractive than you, and you're competing against all of them, every single day. That's why it feels impossible. Because in her mind, why settle for average when endless choices are at her fingertips? And that's the reality most men are choking on. The market is flooded, and if you don't stand out visually, you get drowned before you even step onto the field. But here's what's even more brutal. Being unattractive today doesn't just mean rejection. It means erasure. Years ago, a man could prove himself through character, through persistence, through real-world connection. Now, you don't even get the chance. If your profile doesn't spark instant desire, she never replies. If your presence doesn't light her up immediately, she doesn't even register you. Modern dating has stripped away the middle ground. Either you're chosen instantly or you're ignored completely. And for men who fall on the wrong side of that line, it feels like a life sentence of loneliness. And yet, men keep clinging to hope. Hope that if they just try harder, someone will notice. Hope that if they keep giving, one woman will finally value it. But hope without truth is just self-destruction. Because the truth is, attraction is not a democracy. You don't earn votes. You don't collect points. You either trigger her desire or you don't. And if you don't, no amount of patience will change that. That's why so many men are exhausted, not just physically, but spiritually. Because they're chasing something that was never meant to be theirs. But listen carefully. Once you understand this system, you stop playing it on her terms. You stop measuring yourself by whether women validate you. You stop begging for a seat at a table that was never set for you. Instead, you start building your own table. You reclaim your value not from who desires you, but from who you decide to become. That's the power unattractive men unlock once they accept the truth. You stop waiting to be chosen, and you start choosing yourself. So here's the reality you can no longer ignore. Modern dating is merciless if you're unattractive in her eyes. It doesn't matter how much love you have to give, how loyal you are, how deeply you care. If she doesn't feel it, you don't exist. And the more invisible you feel, the more it eats at you. That's why so many men today are broken, not because they're weak, but because they were sold lies about how love works. They were told to wait, to keep trying, to never give up. But no one told them the truth. Attraction is the gatekeeper, and without it, the door stays locked. And that realization is devastating, but it's also the first step to freedom. Because once you see this clearly, you stop begging for entry into a system that doesn't value you. You stop pouring your soul into women who only see you as background noise. You stop hoping that effort will create desire. Instead, you begin the process of becoming something greater, not for them, but for you. That's the pivot every man must make if he wants to survive this modern landscape. You stop asking, "Why won't she choose me?" and start asking, "Why haven't I chosen myself yet?" Because the second you do that, everything changes. The rejection doesn't vanish, but its power over you does. You're no longer defined by who ignores you. You're defined by what you build. Here's the truth you were never meant to hear. Most men will never win in the modern dating market. But the men who rise are the ones who realize they don't need to win her game. They build their own. They shift the focus from chasing women to chasing purpose, from needing validation to creating value. And ironically, that's when attraction often follows, not because you begged for it, but because you became undeniable. That's the paradox no one teaches you. When you stop worshipping women and start mastering yourself, you stop living as an option and start living as a man with gravity. So, I'll leave you with this question. When you look in the mirror, are you living as the man women overlook, or the man who no longer needs their approval? Drop your answer in the comments below and tell me honestly. If this message hit you, don't just keep it to yourself. Like this video, subscribe for more, and share it with a brother who needs to hear these words tonight. Because the truth is harsh, but it's the only thing that will set you free.